Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy C. Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation this morning will be delivered by Dr. Randy Sheridan from Victory Assembly of God Church in Fort Worth. Appreciate you coming out today. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
Thank you, Your Honor. Will we bow our heads? Heavenly Father, we're so grateful today for the beautiful day that you've given us. We're grateful for the opportunity that we have together to do the people's business. I pray that you would bless in a very special way the commissioners, our county judge. I ask that your grace and wisdom be extended to them as they do the people's business. We thank you for your care and protection. We covet your wisdom in all things, in all affairs. For we know that we are your vessels and your instruments. We thank you for your blessing upon this county, upon this people, and we ask it today in the wonderful name of Jesus. Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you again, Dr. Sheridan, for being here today. Mr. Manius, agenda announcements.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, we have three announcements as it relates to the agenda. The first is under the Administrator's section, item A2. We're going to ask that that be removed from the agenda. At this time, we have found a different solution as it relates to that particular issue. Also, under Budget and Risk Management, item 8C1, which is the approval of the FY11 appropriation adjustments. There is a revised court communication that we have put in your red folder or to the electronic book. Basically, it was just a correction on account number. And then finally, under Facilities Management, item 8F1, this is amendment number 2 to the Steele Freeman contract. There's a revised court communication. We changed one number in there. It's a minor change. And so that would be that change there. Would also like to remind the court that on the March 8th, which is 2 weeks from today, that we are not going to be holding court. Our next court meeting will be next Tuesday, the 1st, and then the one after that will be the 15th.
Thank you, sir. Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of February the 15th.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Today we have a proclamation regarding our Severe Weather Awareness Week. And I think our own Melissa Patterson, Miss Wendy, is here to...
Miss Wendy. I thought she was Miss Tornado.
Well, Miss Disasters.
Disaster.
Probably a better way to introduce her.
Such a description for such a lovely lady.
Miss Ice and Snow Queen.
So just keep it up. See, you thought you were going to get a word in edgewise, hadn't you?
Thank you.
You got extra lunch?
I'm going to read this into the record. Severe Weather Awareness Week, whereas each year brings the potential for violent weather to Texas, when large portions of our Texas, including Tarrant County, could be devastated by flooding, tornadoes, hail, windstorms, and other emergencies. And whereas the Texas Division of Emergency Management and the National Weather Service have joined together to urge all citizens to prepare for severe weather events and to educate themselves on safety strategies. And whereas Governor Rick Perry has declared the week of February 20th through 26, 2011 as Severe Weather Awareness Week in Texas, now therefore be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, do hereby proclaim February 20th through 26, 2011 as Severe Weather Awareness Week in Tarrant County. Further, we urge everyone in our community to learn more about and to participate in severe weather preparedness activities available in Tarrant County. In witness whereof, we've heretofore set our hands and caused the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 22nd day of February 2011. I'll move its approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, you guys, the T-shirts in front of you. If you're Commissioner Wynn, I know you're not yet familiar, but this is my favorite program. It's a regional program for education, for family preparedness especially. We have developed the program over the last 4 years. It is a FEMA award-winning program that we've been really involved with. And basically, what we do is we just communicate that out to the community. We go to health fairs, we go to safety fairs, and we ask people to go to the knowwhattodo.com website. We've even strengthened that this year to include a lot more activities for the children, to include being able to print off coloring sheets and doing puzzles, and we're trying to push that out to the schools so they can use that when they talk about the weather. They're starting to do that as well. Last year, our weather week came a little late. It ended up coming the second week of March, and as you know, March is kind of our
Kickoff to bad weather month.
yeah, so we're trying to beat it out here. A couple of weeks ago, we had you approve an extension on the Safe Room and Tornado Safety Shelters grant, and that was approved. That's coming back from the state, so we'll be able to run that through the end of the year, thankfully, because it seems like right after each event, right after we have a severe event, it's when we get the interest. So we get a lot of phone calls. Otherwise, it would have ended in May, and you know, the wind will occur about that time. The judge has been calling me windy for 5 years now. So.
That was after all those winds we were supposed to get that came. It didn't happen to appear in that particular regard. But my wife has our safe closet, and it's all decked out. We used to get the dogs. You know, anytime there was a tornado warning, she'd take the dogs and get in there. I'd go out on the back porch and watch the tornadoes. But now she has them prepared for the grandkids, and they already play in the closet, so they're ready to go in there. So I'll come down and if Ann can get her camera to, do you have your camera with you?
Yes, sir.
Is this the county camera?
This is, yeah.
The one that's always broken?
Yeah, the one that's always broken.
It's going to be one of those days.
It did it?
No.
No, I didn't. I didn't.
Do one more, I'm sorry. One,
Did you
two.
not find the blue shirt today?
Oh, look, Margie.
I swear, we're going to take up a collection for a new camera.
Never going to happen.
Oh, right. We was talking about JD's blue shirt. I was asking, could he not find something that was a little more blue?
I didn't get the memo today about the blue whale. It looks like neither one of us did. You have before you the consent agenda.
Move for approval of consent agenda. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the court, we have one final item to bring to you this morning. This is item number A1. We're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve a resolution which supports state appropriations for the Low-Income Vehicle Repair and Retrofit Program, also known as LIRAP, and the local initiative projects. This will be added to our legislative agenda as it, and I believe we've already have some information on that on our legislative agenda. The court communication describes pretty well the fiscal impact that this particular piece of legislation or this program has on Tarrant County and North Texas, and we're seeking your approval.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Tidwell?
Morning.
Good morning.
We're trying to get back on track After the annual audit, we don't typically issue financial statements until we get the books closed and most of the audit done, and we're in the process of finalizing our CAFR and certainly finishing up with the auditors. So this morning, we're asking that you receive and file, first of all, the financial statements for the period ended October 2010, and we can do both of them, I'd assume, and as well as November, the October and November financials.
Move approval to receive and file.
Second.
We have a motion to receive and file the October and November 2010 financial statements. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Good morning.
Morning. Under first item of the district attorney's section, we're requesting acceptance of a subrogation recovery amount of $7,251.63.
Move approval.
Second.
A motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Mr. Phillips.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. It is requested that Commissioners Court approve Amendment Number 2 to the Stillman Freeman Construction Management Contract for the Northwest Subcourthouse Building Project.
Move approval.
Second.
A motion is second. Any discussion?
Just a question. Why is amendment, okay. One is an amendment and the other is a change order.
Yes, Commissioner. Amendment adds trade packages that weren't already in the guaranteed maximum price. A change order changes the trade packages that were already in it. So we're adding a trade package that was not originally planned.
That's concrete? That's concrete?
That's correct.
parking lot?
So amendment adds.
My question was going to be, why is one on the consent agenda and the other is not?
The change order was a deductive change order, so I would think you would probably want to carefully take that.
That answers my question. Thank you.
We'll be glad to take the money back, is what we're saying. Any other questions? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Glenn. Good morning.
Good morning. I have three items for the court this morning. The first item, we're asking the court to receive and file the personnel agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Second item, we're asking the court to approve a waiver of terminal benefits for JP Precinct 2. Judge Davis is requesting a waiver effective February the 28th for 197 vacation hours. She's an administrative court clerk who's leaving on February the 25th. The estimated impact to the general fund will be approximately $3,700, excluding fringe benefits.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our third and final item, we're asking the court to approve organizational changes for the 213th District Court and the Sheriff's Office. The court is being asked to approve a transfer of a bailiff from the Sheriff's Office to the 213th District Court, which is Judge Stearns. If approved, this transfer would be effective February the 26th, and that would give Judge Stearns 2 judges bailiffs as permitted under Section 53.001 of the Texas Government Code.
Would that present a shortage to the sheriff?
Pardon?
Would that present a shortage in personnel to the sheriff?
I believe the Sheriff's Office is in agreement with this transfer.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Ms. Brewer? Good morning.
Public Health has two items for your approval. The first is to submit an application to Blue Cross and Blue Shield for sponsorship of the 2011 Fit Future Kids Fest.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
The second item is to approve a contract with the Oak Ridge Institute for Science and Education for the provision of disaster preparedness training.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Mr. Beecham.
Good morning. Your Honor, other members of the court, we have two items for your consideration this morning. Our first item is an item in regards to competitive seal proposal number 2011-005. This is a CSP for the 1895 courthouse clock rehabilitation project. We're seeking permission to begin final negotiations as per contract terms with the two vendors as shown in your court communique.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Last item is also a bid award recommendation for RFP number 2011-025. This is signing a contract for drug and alcohol testing for use by the HR department. Recommendation to award to a company called Compliance Consortium Corporation per the contract terms.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Jack, I got a question. On the courthouse renovation, who negotiates with those is that your department or is it
In conjunction
David?
with facilities. David, you want to?
Both?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's fine. Okay.
Hi, Sheriff.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm well. How are y'all?
Morning.
Great.
Great. I'm going to take just a moment. It's that time of year to present to you our annual racial profiling data as required by law. And I know we come up every year and present you lots of graphs and numbers and a maze of things to go through. So I want to take just a minute, talk a little bit about what we find when we go through this. We continue to be very diligent in trying to make sure that our deputies are not engaging in any kind of this activity. And I think as you look at the numbers, it proves that out annually, year after year, that they track pretty well. You're going to see some changes in some numbers if you track it from year to year. We're struggling a tiny bit with some terminology that the state puts out. There are categories when we stop someone that say we release someone versus we warn someone. I mean, almost everyone that we stop and release, we warn. I mean, we wouldn't stop them. We didn't. So we've had some changes in our terminology. A couple of years ago, we started trying to kind of change the focus of traffic enforcement and how we did things. And so some numbers have moved, but there's nothing, if you look at the ratios and the way we stop people, the way we arrest people, cite people, search people, that in the numbers that is any alarming data for us that have looked at it. I think the big change and what, I'd like for y'all to understand, the big change for us has come since y'all were able to fund our in-car video system. We now have the in-car video system where we have a state-of-the-art video system with dash cams. It literally allows us from our desktops, every supervisor all the way up to me, to be able to look at any traffic stop at any time that occurred. And so any kind of allegation of misconduct against a deputy during a traffic stop is easily reviewed by anyone in the supervisory chain. Not only that, but I require my supervisors monthly to randomly go in and look at traffic stops of different deputies. I require that. I receive a monthly report of what supervisors do it and how long they spend and how many videos they look at. This has proved extremely beneficial for us. Not that we found anything racially profiling instance, but it's proved beneficial for us in improving the level of service and the way people conduct themselves. So that has become a great tool for us, thanks to y'all. Once again, I'm very proud to say, and unbelievable for an agency this size, we had no complaints about racial profiling for the year again. No complaints at all. And I think that speaks volumes for the job our people do. So with that, I would ask you to receive and file it, and I'll be happy to address any questions or concerns that you might have.
Move to receive and file.
Second with a comment. Sheriff, I have seen you give these reports year after year after year. I look at them closely year after year after year. and I kind of verify what's going on by what happens in my office. And I have to say that I agree with you. I haven't gotten any calls about racial profiling by any of your deputies either. So once again, good job.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Sheriff. We have a motion and a second to receive and file. Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Commissioner Fickus, I believe you have an interlocal agreement on our agenda.
I do. I have an interlocal agreement with the city of Bedford, road work. Also, we have one, can I do them both at the same time?
Sure.
We have one with the city of Euless also. Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve items 8L1A through D.
Yes.
Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Any appointments today? None. Then you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
A motion and second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Manning.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have two items to bring to the court this morning. The first concerns the process of appointing a tax assessor collector for the county. As you know, Ms. Price has filed for the position of mayor of Fort Worth, which presents some issues for the county to consider. What we'd like to do this morning in court is for you to receive a briefing by the district attorney's office. Mr. Collins is going to make that. Then we're going to ask that you give staff guidance on how we would like to proceed. We have a recommendation also on that.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mark.
Morning.
Great day to serve in Tarrant County. Our topic today is Texas Constitution, believe it or not, because there are three separate provisions of our Texas Constitution that have now come into play with Mrs. Price filing for mayor of the city of Fort Worth. And I want to just run through that very quickly. It's fairly straightforward, but it's not something we deal with every day. First of all, when Ms. Price filed to run for mayor of the city of Fort Worth, she immediately triggered two provisions of our Texas Constitution. One is the automatic resignation, so-called resign to run. That's automatic. The moment she filed, she resigned as tax assessor.
Filed or
the second, excuse me?
You said filed, but I thought earlier you said when she announced.
No, when she filed.
Okay.
When she filed. And I'm not clear at all that she announced before she filed. That's, by the way, that's a very difficult thing to do, to resign by just announcing. It has to be done a particular way. But that doesn't come into play here. She has filed for mayor, and the moment she filed, she resigned under our Constitution. But the second requirement that she triggered is that she continue to hold over as the official tax assessor until her successor is actually sworn into office. And that's automatic, too. Nobody has to do anything. Both of those provisions are automatic. They occurred immediately when she filed. They're both equally important. One is not more important than the other. Having done that, you now have the right to name a new tax assessor if you choose to do so.
And that's the responsibility of this court.
Responsibility of the Tarrant County Commissioners Court. A majority of the membership of this court can name, if you agendize it correctly, can name a new tax assessor.
Simple majority.
Simple majority, that's correct. And it's at any meeting you choose to agendize it. But she remains the official tax assessor unless and until you do so. So her duties don't change, her responsibilities don't change. In effect, what's happened is by filing for tax assessor, she has placed herself in the position of an at-will office holder, because you have the right to name a replacement anytime you choose to do so, up to and including when the next election occurs, of course, and then that trumps everything. She has to continue to serve as a holdover indefinitely until the next election, unless she is elected mayor of the city of Fort Worth. If she is elected mayor of the city of Fort Worth, then a third constitutional provision comes into play, the dual office holding provision that prevents an office holder from holding two offices at the same time. And at that point, she becomes the mayor, and you don't have a tax assessor unless you've named one. So, in other words, the dual office holding provision trumps the holdover provision that requires her to hold over. If she is not elected as the mayor of the city of Fort Worth, then it is within your discretion to either name a new tax assessor or to let her serve as a holdover indefinitely until the next election, 2012. So you are permitted to allow her to remain in office if she is not elected as mayor of the city of Fort Worth. Our Attorney General has stated clearly that a person who automatically resigns under our Texas Constitution may not be reappointed to that position. In other words, you could not reappoint Ms. Price if she loses the election. But that doesn't relieve her of the responsibility of continuing to serve, the fact that you don't reappoint. There is, because these are constitutional provisions, sometimes there's not a lot of detail in the Constitution, and there is no particular time period within which you must name a new office holder. It's just indefinite. And the Attorney General has noted that in their rulings, that there's not a time period. Not only is there no time period, there is no particular process. In other words, the Constitution doesn't lay out some procedure that you have to utilize. You're going to have to come up with that procedure if you choose to follow through and make an appointment. But regardless, the law requires that she continue to serve, and it's not just permit her to serve, it requires her to serve. She must continue to serve as the tax assessor until there's somebody sworn in to her spot, or until she is elected mayor of the city of Fort Worth and is sworn into that spot. And the requirement that she continue to serve includes the requirement that she be paid her full salary. She's an official tax assessor. She's just a holdover at will. Now, I would like to answer any questions if you have any. It's strictly the prerogative of this court as to how you wish to proceed. And if I can answer any questions, I'll be glad to.
Thank you. I guess I understand what you said is the time that she signs up, or the time that she signed up. But I had always heard in the past that if any elected official, county elected official, makes a statement that they are running for an office, that signals their resignation at that point in time.
There is a list of elected county officials who are in that category, and she's one of them, you're one of them, all members of this court, the sheriff is one of them, the district attorney is one of them. So there's a list in the Constitution. And the Constitution says, announce or file. But the interpretation of announce by the courts and by the Attorney General is as follows. First, it must be a clear, unequivocal, I'm going to run, I'm running. Not I'm thinking about it, not I'm seriously considering it, I'm running. Secondly, it has to be a public announcement. You could tell a friend, or you could be at a luncheon and where you're just sitting at a table with some friends and you say, well, I'm going to run. That's not a public announcement. It must be a public announcement. So it has to be unequivocal and it has to be public, if that answers your question.
Do you know, with the city of Fort Worth, when we talk about this timing, if the election will be on a Saturday, there could end up being a runoff, but let's just say that the results are determined on that election. How long is it from that election until they usually attempt to swear in their new council members?
That I'm not sure of. I think it's pretty quickly. And I think you need to be ready to make sure that there is a succession in that office.
I think it's at least a couple of weeks.
Okay.
The tax assessor collector is bonded, correct?
Correct.
The procedure for to become bonded takes approximately how long? And whatever else, and I know Ann's over here, but what else is required other than to be bonded?
Well, they have to file a statement and give an oath of office, and the bonding can be done fairly quickly. But
prior to being sworn in?
As they're sworn in, they should be bonded. When they're sworn in, they should be bonded. I don't know that one has to be before the other.
Should be or has to be?
They should be bonded.
Come on around.
It is a great day to serve in Tarrant County. They should be bonded before they're sworn in because they cannot exercise the duties of the office until they're bonded. And if they swear in and aren't bonded, then you create a confusion where, you know, there's a question as to who is the tax assessor collector.
Not should, but they must be.
It's as close to must be without being the exact words, yes. Okay. There are 2 bonds that are required, and we I know, can advise you further on that if you want more detail. I would think that it would not be something that could be done in 1 or 2 days, but I would think that it certainly could be done in 2 weeks or less. It kind of depends on the number of errors that need to be corrected in the bonds, and as you all know from experience, that is something that depends a lot on the bonding companies. But and then there are other questions relating to chief deputies and such. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I guess question. I guess one of the other questions with regards to that, let's say, for example, that we're not ready to appoint someone, then do we then make sure that someone within that department, and I know that Tom is the chief deputy right now, would we just make sure that he was bonded? What is what potential role do we have for an interim before we make an appointed one? Let's just say we have not, she gets elected, we have not got our person selected at that point in time, she's sworn in, can we name an interim without it being the person who we're going to ultimately, or do we simply have to make sure that someone is bonded for the liability in that office?
It's the latter.
Okay.
You can't name an interim. You can appoint someone or not appoint someone, but you want to make sure that there is a person bonded.
So at that point, then, if we don't have someone appointed and Betsy is sworn in, then we've got to make sure someone in that department is bonded for the liability.
That's correct.
Tell me, that person, when they become sworn in, they are the tax assessor collector.
No, there is a provision in the government code that a first assistant or chief deputy can continue to perform the duties of the office in a physical vacancy. Mm-hmm. And so you want to be sure that you have a first assistant or deputy bonded at the time that she were sworn in, that she might be sworn in. But that doesn't make the person the tax assessor. That doesn't mean you name them.
Okay, that just means they perform the duties of the office. And that's all set up so that offices don't, the function of an office does not expire just because the office holder expires. Let's say that we had a death in our county family. Then a first assistant or a chief deputy could take over. In the tax office, the bonding requirements are such that they have to be bonded for them to take over.
Has a situation like this occurred in the past, in the history of Tarrant County? Anything like that?
I don't remember one just like this. We have had vacancies in commissioners' courts, members, where the county judge makes the appointment. But I don't remember one like this.
Say what?
That's right.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. It's if the county judge, if there's a vacancy in county judge, then the court appoints. If there's a vacancy in commissioners, the county judge appoints.
I give you pause.
Make sure you don't vacate your office, Commissioner.
So stay healthy.
And just be careful if you get mad at somebody and tell them you want to run against them. You better be careful.
I was thinking of a slightly different scenario.
Any other questions of Marvin at this time? Thank you, Marvin.
Thank you.
And I think, as GK mentioned, that kind of gives us the, what the provisions are. I think the next step is to try to define a process. I've had a couple of folks call expressing some interest, and I have basically said that the court has not discussed the process that we're going to go through or set up any sort of a process. And so I think, at this point in time, we should make any comments to Mr. Manius, or if you wouldn't mind, the approach would be to let Mr. Manius come back to us with maybe some suggestions. But if you've got some things that you're specifically going to want to look for or specifically want to see in the process, then now would be the time to kind of highlight that and to talk about that.
Whoever fills this position would fill it until the end of December 2012, correct? December 31st.
There's 2 more years left in this.
Yeah, almost whatever.
Almost
a year and 9 months, something like that.
I thought it was until a replacement is elected.
If we put somebody in, they would serve until.
Well, that's
No, and
you better
Marvin,
come
you want
back
to
and
answer?
there's another question.
I can answer that question, but you may want to let Marvin answer that question.
If this were an unexpired term, then the newly elected person would be sworn in as soon as the votes are canvassed. But this is not an unexpired term. If the next term begins January 1st of 2013. So the person who is elected in 2012 has no authority to take office before January the 1st, 2013, in the absence of your appointment. You see what I'm saying? In other words, that election is for a 4-year term that begins January 1st, 2013. Sometimes these vacancies occur in the middle of a 4-year term. And in that instance, there's an unexpired term, and Commissioner Johnson would be correct that the person is sworn in as soon as the votes are canvassed.
This is in the middle of her term.
Well, look at it this way. The next, if I'm not mistaken, the next election cycle for Tarrant County Tax Assessor is 2012.
Right.
The regular election cycle.
Right.
For her office. And that is for a term that begins January the 1st. If a person is elected in November of 2012, they don't have any authority whatsoever to take office before January 1st.
What I said, Marvin, was if we appoint somebody, that person would stay in that office at least until December 31st, 2012.
That's correct.
Okay, that's what I said. So,
And that is correct.
which is about a year and 10 months.
I understood what Commissioner Fickus said. I'm completely confused about what you said. What distinguishes this situation from your unexpired term scenario?
Because the law is very clear that an appointed office holder, in this state, almost everybody's elected. And in this state, an appointed person holds office, quote, until the next general election. And that has been interpreted to mean until the votes are canvassed. Now, if a person is elected in the second half of a 4-year term, then and for a full 4-year term, they don't have any authority to take office before January 1st.
So they don't. Since there is less than 2 years.
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right.
So if Betsy had just run, sworn in again January 1st, okay?
That's correct.
And this happened, then whoever we would appoint, they would have to run still in 2012.
That's correct.
To complete the last 2 years of that term.
That's exactly right. And that person, whoever is elected, in that situation, would take office or could take office as soon as not the day after, but the day the votes are canvassed in November.
He didn't tell me that 2 years ago.
Yes, I did.
4 years.
You were just gracious enough not to put me out of office.
I didn't want to put you on the street.
And you didn't want me to have to collect unemployment for 2 months.
I didn't want to put you on the street. Okay. So we need to come, working with GK, we need to come up with a procedure that we're going to follow. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
And what I would just suggest is that if there's things that certain things that you want to see included in that process, now would be the time to at least mention those or for us to have some discussion about that.
Well, I know we've had a little discussion on this, but I wasn't aware that we could appoint a, quote, interim. And that person, now you just heard a minute ago and said that.
No, he did not say we could appoint an
He said
interim.
we could not.
We could appoint a first assistant.
No, you can't appoint anyone except a tax assessor collector to that office.
What happens is that if we haven't appointed somebody, then someone in that office has to be bonded, and it would, in all likelihood, be Tom. But we don't make an appointment. It's just a matter that someone has got to get bonded in that office.
Okay. Is he sworn?
No.
Is he not sworn in as tax assessor collector?
He serves as a chief deputy.
Let me make a slight distinction here so that it's maybe clarified to some extent. The person who names the chief deputy or first assistant is not you. It's the tax assessor. Whoever they have named can be bonded, and they perform the duties of office, but they are not the tax assessor. They are the first assistant or chief deputy under the government code who serves to make sure the duties of the office are carried forward.
Do they assume the salary of the tax assessor collector?
That would be at your discretion.
Really?
Yes, because they're just a deputy or a first.
Okay.
A person could name just a deputy clerk as the first assistant, for example. That doesn't raise their salary. They're sworn in, or they're bonded as the tax assessor. They're ordinarily, the salary is paid at that point, just for that little interim period during which they serve, but you don't name them.
Okay, you said, are they sworn in? I would think they're already sworn in as something.
They're already sworn in as the first assistant. But they're going to have to be bonded.
So if we take no action, let that happen, that person, who's going to direct that we put that person in that position?
Well, it's not directed by anybody. It's named by the current office holder. So the current office holder should have a designation of who the first assistant or chief deputy would be for those purposes.
Okay. Okay.
To that end, I know that when elections come around and we have our swearing in, all of those folks are deputized. DA does, district clerk, county clerk. Those folks are not, they don't have to be redeputized. If we appoint somebody, do they have to be redeputized, or does everybody have to be redeputized at that time?
And what is your belief?
If you appoint an actual tax assessor collector, yes, they would, I'm sorry.
We're on streaming video, and they have a hard time seeing you back over in that corner, and maybe hearing you.
And I'm so quiet, too. Yes, if you appoint a tax assessor collector, they would become deputies of the new one, and so they would have to be redeputized. However, if they were continuing to carry out the functions of the tax assessor collector and you didn't appoint someone, and they were operating under the supervision of the first assistant or chief deputy chosen for that purpose by the tax assessor, you wouldn't. So yes, if you appoint someone, no, if it was just allowing the office to continue as set out in the statute.
And the appointment of the chief deputy
Or first assistant.
Or first assistant occurred, that had to occur prior to her
Yes.
being a holdover?
No, it will occur, or if it has not already, it can reoccur. It is an act that she will have to take prior to being sworn in as mayor. She will have to choose who would be the first assistant or chief deputy for that purpose.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments for GK, or do we just want to ask him to come forward with a recommended process? And
I think that's what we need to do.
I think we do need to start the process. Having been elected to office in an election that included a holdover from another jurisdiction, and that jurisdictional body chose to let this person continue to serve until after the runoff to see who won and who lost, and then set an election to fill the seat thus vacated. I found that to be most uncomfortable as somebody running for office. I found it to be devious. I didn't like it a bit. And I would not like to see us do that. I love Betsy and consider her to be a very, very dear friend. But this is different from friendship. I think we ought to exercise our responsibility and start a process to fill that spot.
any other comments or questions?
Members of the Court, we can now go to item B, which is the legislative issues. Mr. Mendez has provided to you a memorandum, or his weekly memorandum. There are some interesting things in that memo, especially as it relates to the comments of Chairman Pitts of the House Appropriations Committee. If you have not had the opportunity to see that memorandum or read it, I would suggest that you might want to take advantage of that. With that being said, I'll attempt to answer any questions that you might have as it relates to that memorandum. Hearing none, we'll then move to item C. This concerns an update on the county's capital improvement program. It's 2006. Mr. Phillips is here to address the court at this time.
I would like to update the Commissioners Court on the progress of 3 of the building projects included in the 2006 capital improvement program. First, the jail. Most all of the walls in the jail are made up of 16-inch wide by 8-inch tall concrete masonry unit blocks. And when we finish, there'll be over 400,000 of these blocks on our project. The quality of the work of the mason is important on this project, as is the exact placement of these block work, because it's the actual design dimensions for this project in the cell area only allow for approximately a 2% tolerance for error. For example, the jail standards requirement for an inmate separation cell is 80 square feet of open, clear space. Some of our cells are designed for 81 square feet. So if there's a wall that moves over a half inch or so, that might not make things good for us. So there's not a lot of room for uh-ohs on this project. And I said all that because I just want to let you know the masons are doing a fantastic job. Starting next week and through May, in the city streets next to the jail, there will be quite a bit of utility work going on. The utility work will require 2 lanes of the 4 drive lanes in Weatherford to be shut down at night. However, during the day, we're just going to have to shut down 1 lane on Weatherford and 1 lane on Belknap at various times between next week and May. And I want to let you know, on the west end of Weatherford, Belknap Canyon down there, it's going to be a little tight for a few months.
What is night? When you say close at night, is that from 8 till?
Commissioner, I believe it's from 10 o'clock p.m. till 5 or so, I believe.
Okay.
There's specific times that the city's allowing us to.
Late.
Yeah, it's late.
Okay.
But you're going to be sure that they understand that they need to have that thing back open?
Yes, sir.
They don't need to drift in their delay of keeping those things closed down?
Yes, sir. On to the medical examiner's office project. There was a work-related injury on the project on February 12th, which was a couple of Saturdays ago. A mechanical contractor employee was hit in the face with a 10-inch diameter steel pipe. What happened? It seems that a portable hoist that was being used to lift a 20-foot section of pipe overhead failed, which allowed the pipe to fall to the floor, bounce up, and hit the employee in the face. The employee is still receiving medical attention today. I did talk with Mark Starr, who is our project manager, and asked him to go back and look at some of the safety information for the project. He did note that both the construction manager and the mechanical contractor had written safety plans for the use of lifts and hoists on the job site. Also, he noted, in addition to the daily reports that Thomas S. Byrne staff does for safety investigations, the commercial general liability insurance carrier for Thomas S. Byrne sent out a safety inspector in December of last year on a routine visit, and they didn't find any safety issues with the project. In January, the safety inspector for Texo, and Texo is a construction association here in North Texas, they sent out a safety inspector at the request of the mechanical contractor, and they didn't find any issues with any of the hoist or lifting equipment. February 8th, 4 days before the accident, Texo inspector came out again at behalf of Thomas S. Byrne, and he looked at all of the trade packages, trade work on the project, and didn't find any issues with any lifting equipment whatsoever. 3 days before the accident, the Thomas S. Byrne in-house safety director made a specific site inspection, inspected the particular hoist in question, and didn't find any issues with it at the time. So
What kind of hoist was it?
I'm sorry?
What kind of hoist is it?
It's a material hoist, come-along type hoist that's used to lift pipe and duct work. It'll lift it.
The sling and all that?
Yeah, it's got a cable, a 1/4 inch or 3/8 cable.
Okay.
We found that on this project to date, there's been over 100,000 man-hours invested in this project, and evidence of what I've seen, safety has been important, and it will continue to be important on this project. On to the rest of the project, the veneer brick and block work has started on the project this month. There's substantial activity on the overhead mechanical piping and duct work in the project on all floors. Also, the electrical switchgear and motor control centers, the large panels, are coming in and being set. The lab building will substantially complete in late summer of this year, and when that's complete, we'll move on to the existing building, do some work in the morgue area, and the entire project will substantially complete about 12 months from now. On to the sewer courts building. We would like to present our recommendations on the interior finishes to the Commissioners Court next week in a work session. Those interior finishes are for the floors, the walls, the ceilings of the courtrooms and the lobbies. And you will be getting, if you haven't already received, an updated rendering of some of the elevations of the courtrooms and lobbies to give you an idea of what we're planning to do next week. And in about a month or so, we'll come back and ask for final approval.
That work session next week is going to be after court. It'll be part of the court agenda, but it'll be after closed, and we will be having that in 504C, the large room in the back of the court.
And the last thing I have, in April, we'll be moving all of the county parkers who are parked on Block 10, which is the site of the construction project. We'll be reassigning them to other county spaces as best we can so we can start preparing the site for construction in April.
When are we going to see the final materials and everything on the exterior?
Judge, they are working on that now. I think there's just a couple of things, a couple of materials they haven't received yet. You'll probably see that on Block 11 in April, and you'll see a complete setup with all the different types of granite skins, the window. You'll see a grill that goes over the window. You'll see the brick mortar, and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, I'm still kind of leery about that grill, so I want to, when do we have final approval on whether or not to put that grill on there or not?
Sir, you have final approval anytime.
When do we have final approval that it doesn't cost us anything?
Probably already cost us something.
I'll have that cost to you well in advance before you have to make a decision.
Well, I mean, we haven't actually, we've talked about the colors, we've talked about the materials, we've talked about the grill, but I've talked to someone about the nice little buildings that we have across the way from us, and the difficulty that they're having, or that they're going to have cleaning those windows, and it's brought a new kind of revelation to whether or not we want to put something over those windows, at least in my mind, and the inability of being able to clean those things is something that I'm concerned about.
Yes, sir, I'm concerned about it as well. We've talked in detail with the architects and the designers on the project, and they have certainly tried to work with us. They think, and generally speaking, they believe that the grill is needed to make the west elevation work for them. However,
and by that you mean they think those grills are going to actually take enough of the heat or the sunshine away?
No, I think it has to do with architectural decoration. I think they also, one of the claims is regarding the keep from transmitting heat into the building. That is a valid use of the grill, but there's other ways to do that with enhanced glazing and not to install the grill. But we're going to certainly, we can talk about that next week when the architects are here in front of you. And that's all I have today.
Any other questions or comments?
Thank you.
Thank you, David. I have a couple of audience participation forms. I have 3 at this time. I have one from Norma Brown, Daniel, here we go with the names again. Is it Daniel? Okay. And Steve Young, okay. Norma, why don't you come up first? Norma, and then Daniel, and then Steve. And please, as you come forward, repeat your name and your address. And it looks like all of the items, all folks are talking about the same thing, which is not on our agenda for today. So we'll be glad to hear your comments. We will not be allowed to respond by law to those comments today.
Your Honor, if you would please allow me to go first, because I can kind of set up the comments that were
Okay. Come right ahead. And
I'm sorry, I have to rush, so I have to take off my PCU hat. Good morning, Judge Whitley and Honorable Commissioners. My name is Steve Young, and like Commissioner Nguyen, I am a proud naturalized U.S. citizen.
Please, I'm sorry, but please.
My address? Yes, Your Honor. 2616 Carter Avenue, Fort Worth, Texas, Tarrant County, USA. And as I said, I am a proud naturalized citizen, voter and taxpayer who lives in Tarrant County. And if you just indulge me 1 second, I just want to say how proud I am as another political refugee to see Andy Nguyen serve in this position of public trust, and after having served our country also in the line of duty. So I'm very touched and proud. So, Commissioners, I'm here on behalf of the Board of Directors of Paradise Center Incorporated, a small, tax-exempt, nonprofit organization that has been in existence since 1998 with the mission of serving the needs of citizens of Tarrant County who have serious mental illnesses in their recovery from the illness and in their reintegration into our community as full citizens. Our other board members cannot be here because they are volunteers who have to be at work or who too are also ill. But they will send a formal letter later. But my comment here will pretty much reflect the working points that very few points that we just want to raise with you, and we believe that this is the right authority and venue because the issue that we are bringing up involves a unit of Tarrant County government, which is MHMR of Tarrant County. And I believe Commissioner Brooks' office had received some information, preliminary information about the issue last Friday. Commissioner Wynn's office had been called. I know you all are busy. Commissioner Johnson's office may have been called also to kind of alert you about this troubling issue that has taken place. In simplest forms, last Thursday, the executives of MHMR Tarrant County, and we assume with the full approval of the Board of Trustees, took a very shocking and devastating decision that culminated after 6 months of very questionable decisions and actions, we believe. But what happened last Thursday was the termination of the only full-time employee that helps out Paradise Center, because Paradise Center is operated, it is the largest and the first one in Texas that is what they call consumers, or we just call them people or members or friends, but the mental health consumers who operate it. They control it, they make decisions, they have their own board, and so on. And it is one of the few in the nation. But what happened is that they still need the support of a professional staff. And this staff person, and full disclosure, Your Honors, is my wife and my best friend of 25 years. And she had been in that position for 9.5 going on a full decade with no problems, only praises and admiration from others for her effort. So with that decision, Your Honor, what that did not only affected her, which is a totally separate issue, that's a personal issue, I understand with MHMR that we are not going to discuss, and her attorneys will handle that. But I'm simply here to speak about how MHMR ignored and violated the duly authorized authority of an autonomous organization with its own board of directors by refusing to discuss with us or answer our questions about what they were doing, why they were doing it, and ultimately taking this action that we did not think would happen, which included locking out the board leadership that was operating Paradise Center in a facility that is owned officially on the record by MHMR. Of course, ultimately, we taxpayers own that. But they changed the locks and brought in new people and kept these people out. When we tried to go back on Friday, the day after, because Teresa was told that she could clean out her office then, but these folks were offended because They were ignored, and they felt violated, so they want to take their items that were donated by community members or that they work for to buy. Things like the pool table, the television set, bingo prizes and such that operates a community center that has an average attendance of about 80 people, and that's only because it's restricted by space and has on its roll a membership of over 500. Now, so that's the issue, Your Honor, and so right now, at this point, we, as Paradise Center Incorporated, cannot access the properties that rightfully belong to us. So that's, I'm here to just ask that if you would please look into this issue and help us. And part of the reason why why we came today is because of the emergency nature of it, because many people are confused, those who are very vulnerable, mentally ill right now, they're confused. They're not being told what's happening. They don't know where their person who devotes her life to them for almost a decade went to. And then new people came in. And in fact, we have one RA ended up hospitalized who was a leader from the stress of this. And then we have 2 or 3 more who now just are staying home because they don't want to deal with all the confusion. And that's the enemy of mental health recovery, because we are social people. People are social animals, and the social support and such is part of the recovery and the reintegration. So when people isolate again, most of the time they're going to just kind of go downhill. So that's why it's an emergency situation, Your Honor. And secondly, we are not overstepping the authority of the Board of Trustees, because we have asked to see how would we communicate with the Board of Trustees of Paradise Center, of MHMR, and we were told that we would have to send communications through the executive assistant of the CEO. So therefore, this is the person who made the shocking decision. So we would rather address them ourselves directly tonight when they meet. So that's why we have not sent a written communication, because it would have gone through the office of the CEO, who ultimately made the decision. And the other thing just happens to be timing, Your Honor. You all just so happen to have this scheduled meeting once a month, and so that's why we're here, and the urgency of the matter. Because every day that goes by, Your Honor, some people who make Paradise Center a regular part of their day, in order for them to get out of bed so they don't stay in there and sleep and lose track of time, of day, or what day it is disrupting their lives. And ultimately, it will cost our community in hospitalizations, in emergency care, in even law enforcement issues. And so this is devastating, and it has the potential to devastate and cost our community. And so we urge you to use whatever influence you have to get MHMR to allow us to at least take our properties, because we want to honor the donors who gave those things to us to use for the purpose of helping our friends and neighbors, not for a business enterprise, which we believe is what is behind this.
We appreciate your, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Just one last point, Your Honor. Thank you for your patience. Commissioners, this is not simply a personnel or a local agency issue. It transcends all that, because it affects our community, it affects our tax base, our funds from taxes here, and even more than that, it affects people. These are our children, our neighbors, our friends, our coworkers. So that's why we plead with you, and some who are parents and who are leaders and members will share briefly about how it affects them out of their own free will. They are not being forced to do anything because as the way Paradise Center operates is that we respect mental health consumer as full human beings with their own rights and thoughts. Thank you so much.
Again, we appreciate you coming out today
Yes.
and your comments. Again, as I stated at the beginning, because this was not agendized on our agenda,
Yes, Your Honor.
we're prohibited from actually making any comments or responses to
Yes, Your Honor.
your statement.
Yes,
But I would encourage you to talk to Mr. Manius afterwards and, give him any notes or any comments that you have. And then if y'all can resolve that, then good. And if there is no resolution and you wish to have it placed upon an agenda item later on, then you can, again, tell Mr. Manius that, and we will agendize the item so that we can respond to your comments.
Yes, Your
Thank you
Honor.
very much.
Thank you for your attention and
Recognize
generosity.
that we cannot respond. Would it be appropriate to just ask where this center is located?
Or I can state it.
Go ahead.
It is physically located at 505 South Jennings in your district, in fact, Commissioner Brooks, I believe. Just right south of Lancaster and a little bit west of 35. Pennsylvania and Hemphill and Maine. It's right in that little area. It's just a small storefront that's been converted that's about the size of a 3-bedroom house.
Thank you again, Mr. Young.
Thank you so much.
Now, next I have Norma and then Daniel. Do y'all have any additional comments that y'all would like to make at this time?
Kind of nervous.
Go ahead and please state your name and your address.
My name is Norma Brown. My address is the 1701 East Robert Street, apartment 34D.
Thank you.
Of Fort Worth, Texas. Well, I'm a member of the Paradise Center. I was once the president. And we go there in order to help people that have mental problems and try to help them to stay out of the hospital and try to keep ourselves out of the hospital. And I think I've been there maybe about 5 years, but some have been there longer than I have. But it seems to be working because they enjoy coming there and they play pool. They have activities that they do, and they go out on outings and things, and it makes everybody feel happy. Going out and doing stuff. So that's what we are trying to do. Help the people that need help. That's our plan.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for your comment. Daniel.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Daniel Kovich. I am a father, my son William, who is a member of Paradise Center.
I apologize for interrupting you, but I need
I'm
your
sorry.
address also.
Full address?
Yes.
106 Arthur Drive, Kennedale, 76060.
Thank you.
He has been a member for 2 years or so. I thoroughly support the mission, the structure, and the present personnel of this organization, meaning Paradise Center Incorporated, the nonprofit that operates this center, including, and most importantly, peer supervision, no cost to members, and no insurance required. We're bothered because MHMR has apparently fired present director without the consent of the Paradise Center Board of Directors. I do not support this change in management. Therefore, members, as we're getting together, are deciding, we believe, to relocate Paradise Center to another location, which is to be determined, and we would seek whatever help the city or the county could give us in that regard. I pledge to support this move in any way I can. The question is this a self-guided organization? Is it superior to, say, an official organization like MHMR running it directly? I would point out that the county dollars, I believe, are very efficiently spent with one staff paid member, strong volunteer efforts, and self-governance leading to strong self-esteem of the members. I don't think there's any guarantee that a program run by MHMR can deliver these facts. If, as we think, and this is speculative, but MHMR has in the past run some of its efforts by billing Medicaid, and if this happens, and I say it's speculative, but if it happens, please consider the fact that the money that comes down from Medicaid has to get up there somehow. Like rain from the sky, it has to get up into the sky first, and that is our federal income taxes and other taxes. If you consider the fact that, as I think, that money, the longer it travels, generally disappears. It's always lost along its trail. So any money that we give as taxpayers to the federal government will go up, go around, get through Austin, get through, in this case, maybe a private insurance company, and all the time losing its value. What remains to the consumers of Paradise Center may be very small compared to what we can deliver now. I think Paradise Center is like a church, supported by community, by its members. Now, would you expect a church to get funding from an organization that is dispersing a pool of dollars? We don't run things that way. It's a bridge of personal freedom, and it's, I believe, highly inefficient. Churches are maintained by their members, and not just members, but a highly devoted pool of people that believe in that mission, that love that mission. And that's what we have here. And I ask you, please consider, don't throw away the structure that we have, because it's priceless to us. And I believe it's priceless to the community, as it would be for anyone that were put in a similar situation with their church, for example, or athletic association, civic association, anything you care to mention. Okay, that concludes my remarks. I'd like to leave you with some handouts. I received these as part of Mental Illness Awareness Coalition, which was a group of providers in Texas-wide that went to Austin this last Thursday, which is where I was when all this stuff happened, to lobby the legislature for trying to forestall the drastic cuts they're making in mental health funding. I don't know if you're aware of this, but you might be hearing later perhaps that I believe that MHMR, for example, will be facing a 20% cut. Hospitals, somewhat less, much less. But we are doing our best to limit those cuts and protect our weakest citizens. These coalition partners include the Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance of Texas, which otherwise known as DPSA, the Federation of Texas Psychiatry, and down there were several members of JPS Psychiatry Department, the Mental Health America of Texas, which is MHA, and the National Alliance on Mental Illness, otherwise known as NAMI, which we are members of. Who might give this? Okay.
Thank you.
The point of these handouts basically is that saving minds means saving money. Early intervention, early support will keep people from, say, as you've already heard evidence of, becoming unbalanced, disruptive, needing hospitalization, which costs our county money, much more money. This is laid out here, and I would invite you to review it and consider the low cost that we're asking for and the support, given the, huge cost that can come with hospitalization, whether it's emergency room or Trinity Springs, or in the worst case, when things really go awry, incarceration, the most expensive option we have. These costs come back to you no matter what you do. We need to stop them from coming back. And this is what we've been doing, and I think fairly successfully. The other thing I have is things I drew off the internet this morning. It concerns the Well, which is an organization that is in Dallas. It started out much like Paradise Center. It was church-based or church-supported. It is like what Paradise Center was, but they subscribe to a model that was started in New York back in the 40s called the Clubhouse. And there is an actual organization called the International Center for Clubhouse Development. And it exists as like a model organization, a certification agency. And there are 300 chapters total worldwide, about half of which are in the United States. I have met members from Houston, San Antonio, and Austin, and we saw a presentation from the Dallas group, which just received their certification at a NAMI conference a few months ago. Okay? What they are is more than a social gathering group. They actually have the mission to sit there and get people into the workforce. This is very difficult with people with mental illness. But they have a method, and it works. Okay? It is a combination of training, of mentoring, of job finding, of actual support. Mentally ill people sometimes cannot act with the same diligence that employers expect. So there is actually, during this period of transition, people that fill in jobs, okay, to make sure that that job is held open for them, for that particular client and other clients further down the road. Okay? It's a wonderful program. There is, let's see, an article from Advocate Magazine here I'd like to give you, and also a short paper from World Psychiatry talking about 2 successful rehabilitation models, one of which comes from Europe, and the other one is the model of the Clubhouse.
If you'll give that to Mr. Manius, he will.
And I will.
Make copies and give that to
Now,
him.
Paradise Center is not following all of that model at present. But the question is, how would you ever start such a successful effort? And it has to start from somewhere, and it starts from an organization like Paradise Center. Okay? The Well is completely self-directed. It is right now the model that we do have, or had until Thursday, and we wish to reconstitute again. So this is an effective way to go. Okay? It is a cost-effective way to go. It's a human-effective way to go. Someday, I would like to see Paradise Center become an affiliate of this organization. And Fort Worth would be proud to have that happen. I know that we're always feeling inferior to Dallas. But in this way, so far, it's justified. And we would like to change that. Okay? So in the future, whether it takes 2 to 5 years or whatever, we can move along that path as long as we don't get stopped now. And it is an issue.
Thank you very much for your comments. And again, Mr. Manius will work with y'all and see if we can resolve this. And then again, if it's not, then you can have an opportunity to ask for it to be placed on the agenda. So thank you for coming out today.
Bye.
Anything else, Mr. Manius?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
This time we will recess our open session and proceed to closed session to discuss items exempted under sections 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code. Having returned from our closed session, we'll now address the following matters.
Thank you, Your Honor. We're requesting permission to file suit against Crystal Hobbs under item E2 of the District Attorney's section.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
There being no further business, we're adjourned.